Course 4, Neuromotor Function and Social Cognition. Welcome to Week 2, Neuromotor Function and Academic Tasks. Today we're going to start thinking about the specifics around how neuromotor function operates in the classroom and the ways that academic tasks place demands on students in terms of their neuromotor function. So the learning objectives for this week are to make sure everyone is able to demonstrate knowledge of neuromotor function and how it might impact student learning, and to apply knowledge and vocabulary related to neuromotor function through the identification of the demands embedded in particular lessons or learning tasks. All right. To get us started, we're going to do an activity that will help us think about how school-based activities may be experienced by students with graphomotor weaknesses. So to that end, for this activity, I'll be reading you some information, and then I'm going to ask you questions about that information based on what I've said. So the goal is for you to take notes as thoroughly as possible so you'll be successful when answering the questions that follow. So if you need to pause this mini lecture, go ahead, but please, before you continue, take out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. And then know that I'm asking you to listen quite closely to the mini lecture to make sure you pick up on all of the information I'm presenting. However, when you take notes on the mini lecture for later assessment, please use your non-dominant hand for writing. This will give you an opportunity to experience the process of taking notes for a student who has struggles with neuromotor function in terms of graphomotor function or weakness. And then, of course, as always in school, don't forget to keep up. So again, please feel free to pause this mini lecture until you have all of your materials ready and you feel ready for the activity, and then you can hit play. Here we go. To understand graphomotor function and therefore dysfunction in writing, it is helpful to explore some motor components of writing. Typically, a writing implement is held in what is called a dynamic tripod grasp. The pen or pencil is grasped between the radial distal surface of the middle finger and the pulp surfaces of the thumb and index finger. The index finger is somewhat less flexed than the other digits, which tend to be in a neutral position. The thumb is relatively opposed. When writing with a dynamic tripod grasp, the writer needs to equilibrate several motoric priorities. First, the writer must stabilize the pen or pencil. A firm grip must prevent it from slipping out of control. Second, the writing implement must be maximally maneuverable. It needs to be easily manipulated, especially in the vertical and rotatory axes. Finally, the implement must move in such a way that it transmits kinesthetic feedback so that the writer, via the brain's motor analyzer, can maintain awareness of its location within letters or movements. Okay, that's it for the mini lecture on this page. So here are a few questions that you can use your notes to answer, so feel free to keep your notes out. Number 1. Which axes are most important for maneuvering a pen or a pencil? Number 2. Why is it important for a pen or pencil to transmit kinesthetic feedback to a writer? And number 3. Why must a writer maintain a firm grip on a pen or a pencil? Now, of course, do your best to think about and answer these questions on your own based on the notes that you took. And when you're ready, you can go to the next slide and we'll reflect on this activity itself through a neurodevelopmental lens. So on this slide, the questions I've posted are really intended to help us think about the connections among the constructs as they relate to that note-taking activity. So as you think through the questions that are posted on this page in terms of your own experience, I really encourage you to also think about students you know who have struggled with graphomotor weakness and consider if their learning and their participation in school may have been affected in these really similar ways. So let's go through these questions. So as you tried to take notes with your non-dominant hand, How was your learning and behavior affected? For example, what happened to your ability to concentrate? How was your attention impacted potentially by the challenges introduced into the act of taking notes? How was your ability to remember what was said or your memory affected? What happened to your ability to visualize the handwriting movement between being described in the text? How did this neuromotor challenge impact spatial ordering for you? How did the challenge impact your ability to understand the sentences as they were read? Something that is quite often understood as your receptive language. How about your ability to understand the concepts described, your higher order cognition or thinking? And finally, how did this challenge impact internally or externally your behavior or your attitude during the exercise? Your social cognition, and sometimes this starts to cross over into territory of what people would talk about with what happened to your motivation to complete the task. So for this week, you have an activity where you're going to be asked to watch these lessons that have assessments at the bottom of the page. Just like last week, you can download these slides and then you'll be able to click directly onto those links. I've also posted the link for the debate assessment rubric on our Moodle page because I think that link for some reason isn't working within the slides, but the activity is available for you if you go to the Moodle page. And there will be a assignment posted as well for you to complete these 3 questions based on each of the assessments. So the first will be which components of neuromotor function, gross motor, fine motor, graphomotor, or oromotor, is most in demand in each of the assessments that you view. Then think about what are the possible assessment implications for a student who struggles with the component identified in question 1. So just like what happened in our activity we just went through, if you have a student who's struggling in one of these components of neuromotor function, what might happen when they're being assessed about learning of a different sort? In what ways might it be complicated by neuromotor function? And finally, what are the possible assessment implications for a student with a strength in one of the components identified for each of the assessments in question 1? So you'll work on that on your own when you have the opportunity and submit that onto the Moodle page for this week's assignment by next Sunday night. And finally, you'll have a quick write this week. So again, this is one of those short responses, much like a discussion forum, but much smaller, and it's really intended to just get you thinking and to take a look at what other participants in this course are thinking about neuromotor function this week. So the quick write prompt is to reflect upon the note-taking activity we just did in the mini lecture slides and respond to the questions, what was your emotional response to the task? Were you able to identify particular connections between the note-taking task and any of the other constructs? And some of those connections, potential connections, were what we just went through in slide 4 of the mini lecture. You feel free to reference that slide when you prepare your quick write response. Okay, I think that is it for the mini lecture for this week. I look forward to seeing as many of you as are able to attend on Wednesday night at our GoToMeeting session from 6 to 7. I'll see you soon.